Yeah.
Hello, I'm Karen Bazani-Zock, and I'm better known as Grams or Little G, or some people call me Mrs. Z or Z. And I love to tell stories. And when my grandchildren were small, that's what we did almost every night. They stayed all night. So, one of them especially, one of the older ones, has been pushing me to kind of get the stories to them in some way. So last year I typed up a couple of them. Couldn't remember but two out of the four or five. And finally I decided I was just going to tell the stories. So hopefully you kids will be able to use this type of media when you have children and grandchildren, and you can pass them along. All right, so we're going to do the first one, and it's about three kinds of food. All right. Once there was a little boy named Jimmy, and he had a strange eating habit. All he liked to eat was cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. Every day the same old thing: cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. For
Turn the pudding box around.
Oh.
You got the back of it showing.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay, I'll stop. Okay.
So we're going to do the first story, and it is called, well, I don't really know the name of it, but it's about three types of food and about a little boy who has a strange eating habit. So there was a little boy named Jimmy, and all he wanted to eat was cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. Every day the same old thing: cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. Well, his mother had thought that she might tempt him one morning with something really good to eat. So she made him the most delicious, I can't think of the name of it. It's what you made me. Can you go back just to where I went like that?
Well,
or
just
something?
keep going. I'll have to edit it. It's French toast.
Oh, you can do that? Okay. French toast. So she told him it was really, really good, and she tasted it anyway. Yum, yum, yum. But he wasn't even about to taste it, because all he ever wanted was cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. And he didn't want to eat anything else. One day at school, at lunch, the teacher said, "You know, Jimmy, why don't you eat something besides cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding today?" "No, ma'am," he said. That's all he ever wanted. They had something really good that day, and it even had cheese in it. It was mac and cheese, one of my grandchildren's very favorite meals. Maybe more than one of my grandchildren's very favorite meals. But Jimmy didn't want it because he thought that the noodles looked pretty weird. So he continued eating his cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding every day. The same old thing. For breakfast: cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. For lunch: cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. And for supper: cheese, peas, and chocolate pudding. And sometimes he even ate them before he went to bed for a snack. Well, one day his grandmother was sitting at the table, and she was eating something, and she kept saying, Jimmy, this is good. This is probably the best thing I've ever eaten." Jimmy ignored her at first, and then she kept talking about how good it was. And finally, Jimmy said yes when she asked the big question that his mother had asked, his teacher had asked, and everybody else who knew him had asked. "Would you like a taste of this, Jimmy?" Well, at first he wasn't sure, but she said, "It's mighty good. You don't have to have any. I don't want to share anyway." Well, that did it. Jimmy said yes. So she took a piece off of what she was eating and dropped it in his mouth, and he smiled. He liked it. So now he eats cheese, peas, chocolate pudding, and hamburgers. It became his very favorite meal. The second story I'm going to tell you is one I didn't tell you too often, but I told it definitely a few times. It's one that I could never really remember correctly, and I can't probably remember it correctly now, but we're going to wing it like we always did. It's called Millions of Cats, and the story I'll be giving you is something similar. So there was a little old man and a little old lady who lived at the edge of the woods. And they lived near a dell, and they lived near some water. And they loved their little place, but they were lonely. One day, the little old lady was super sad. And he said to her one day, he says, "Well, what's wrong with you? I know something's wrong with you. Tell me what the problem is." She said, "Well, I'm lonely, and I think it would be really, really nice if we had something to keep us company." Well, they weren't quite sure what they wanted, and finally she said, I know. I want a fluffy little cat, a real pretty cat, the most prettiest cat in the world." And he says, "Well, I saw a couple up on the mountain when I went to get the goats not too long ago. I'll go up there and see what I can find." So he went through the glen, he went through the dell, he went around the water, and up where the goats were kept, he did see a cat. A beautiful, black, shiny cat. Looked like he must keep himself just fancy as could be. And so he picked up the cat and decided that's what he'd take home to the little old lady. But he hadn't gone but just a few steps, and he heard this beautiful, white, gorgeous cat with green eyes say, "Well, I'm pretty too, if that's what you're trying to find, a pretty cat. Or if you're trying to find a smart cat, I'm smart. What are you trying to find anyway?" And he told that cat, "I'm trying to find the most prettiest cat in the world to take home to my wife, my little old lady." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. You're pretty too, I'll just take you both." Well, then there was this striped cat that came up, and he was meowing and throwing a fit, and he laughed. The little old man laughed and picked him up and said, "Okay, I'll take you too." And it just kept going. Every couple of steps, he saw a different kind of cat. He saw black and white striped cats. He saw pink and green cats. He saw every cat in the world. And by gosh, he just kept telling them all to come home with him. Well, he was going through the valley and the dale and around the water, and they had to stop and get a big drink. And they even stopped and ate some grass. And then he thought, how am I going to feed these cats? Well, we'll worry about that later, because I know I've got the prettiest cat in the world with me today. So he went on home and he yelled at the little old lady, "Hey, little old lady, this is so great. You got to come see the most beautiful cat in the world." Well, when she went outside and she saw all these hundreds of cats and thousands of cats and millions and billions and trillions of cats, she couldn't figure out what was happening. She said, "Little old man, what did you do?" He says, "Well, I got you the most prettiest cat in the world." And he said, "But Mama, this isn't going to work very well. How are we going to feed them? And they're going to drink our water dry." And she says, "Oh, I don't know, but they're scaring me," because they had begun to fight. They were meowing and screeching and scratching, and they had to go in the house. So they ran in as fast as they could when they're old. But they got in, okay. And they were looking outside, and they heard all the commotion. And she said, these hundreds of cats and thousands of cats and millions and billions and trillions of cats are driving me crazy, little old man. Well, they put things on their ears. They put their house coats, they put their pillows and anything they could find and went to bed. And in the morning, when they got up, they didn't hear a thing. Not a thing. And the little old lady said, where's the hundreds of cats and thousands of cats? And he said, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Well, they looked outside, and there was not a one. They didn't know what happened. They don't know if they did each other in, or if they went back up to the mountain, or what they had done, but they were all gone. And as they turned, and she was kind of sad, really, because she really had wanted a cat, but they didn't have one. So they started in the house, and she looked over, and she heard a little tiny meow, meow. And she bent down and uncovered some grass, and there was the ugliest cat in the whole wide world. He was scrawny, he was little, he had mats in his hair, he was awful looking. And she says, well, we didn't get the prettiest cat in the world out of those hundreds of cats and millions of cats and billions and trillions of cats, but we did get a cat. So they took the cat in, and they loved it up, and they brushed it out, and they fed it, and they played with it, and they really got to enjoy the cat. And they noticed after a couple of months the cat didn't look too bad. And after 4 or 5 months, the cat was fluffy and beautiful and kept itself clean. And one day, the little old lady said, you know what, little old man? I do think that we do have the prettiest cat in the whole wide world. And he says, I know we do, because I've seen hundreds of cats and thousands of cats and millions and billions and trillions of cats. The end.
1. Go ahead, 0.
Now this is another story that's kind of hard to remember, and it's one that I sometimes changed, but most of the time we got it together, and if I missed something, you guys would usually tell me, or we'd laugh about it later. So this is a story about a lollipop princess. Well, a princess to begin with. And she was very spoiled. She was an only child. And her mama and her daddy, the king and the queen, were very, took care of her very well. Well, one day, well, not one day, but one week, she started feeling really bad. And they asked her what was wrong, if her head hurt. No. Does your stomach ache? No. Well, what's wrong? I don't know. I just want a lollipop. Well, we'll get you a lollipop. She said, no, 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 no. Not any kind of lollipop. I want one I've never tasted before. Oh, dear, said Father King. Well, I'll call in the royal cooks, and they'll help us figure it out. Hey, royal cooks, he said. Well, the royal cooks came, and he told them the situation, that the princess wanted a lollipop. No problem, they said. No, no, no. She wants a lollipop that she's never tasted before. Oh, well, okay, we'll cook up something. So they went back to their kitchen, and they planned for a couple of days, and finally they started cooking, and they flipped one out, and they knew it was going to be perfect. So when the princess tasted it, she said, yuck, it's no good. I want one I've never tasted before. Well, the king said, Queen, what are we going to do? The Queen suggested that perhaps they should call the doctor, because the doctor would really know if she was sick and what was really wrong with her. So they called in the royal doctor. Hey, royal doctor! So he came in a few minutes, and he said, King, what can I do for you, sir? And the king said, Doctor, we're in a mess. The princess is sick. She's really sick. She says that there's nothing really wrong with her, but she's sick, and she seems to be getting sicker every day. Well, okay, I'll go check on her. So he checked her chest. Well, I think that's okay, princess. He checked her ears. Those are okay. He checked her nose and her eyes and her head, and she was perfectly fine. And then he said, wait a minute. I think I know what's wrong with you. And she said, what is it? And he said, King, Queen, Princess, you have a bad disease. A really bad disease. It's called, oh my gosh, it's called, I don't think it's curable. It's called lollipop-itis. Oh, said the king. Oh, said the queen. What are we gonna do, doctor? He says, I don't know. Good luck. So they talked some more about it that night. And the queen said, I think I might have an idea. You know, the princess is getting, 15, 16 years old pretty soon. Maybe we should have a big ball and invite all the prince guys from all over the countryside. And maybe one of them could bring her a perfect lollipop. He says, that's a great idea. So he called in the royal scribes. Hey, royal scribes! He called in all the people who worked for them at the castle, and he said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have the most beautiful ball that has ever been given. Now, when you go out and invite the prince, fellas, I want you to tell them that they must bring the best lollipop they can possibly find. You got it? The best one they can possibly find. So they went out to tell all the guys to come to the party the next night. They finally got the princess up and got her dressed in a beautiful golden gown and a beautiful diamond tiara. You know, those are those things that they put on their heads. Okay, so they got her all dressed up. She looked pretty good. She had on some beautiful white slippers so that she didn't fall since she was sick. And the trumpets began to blow. Do, 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 do. Here is Prince Pop. Prince Pop. Now, Prince Pop thought sure he had the best lollipop in the whole wide world. I mean, it has the name Pop in it. How could it not be? So she tasted it. Nope, that wasn't the best lollipop she'd ever tasted before. What's the deal here? So then Prince Dum Dum came along next. Now, Prince Dum Dum had known that her favorite color was red. And so he had them make a beautiful red Dum Dum sucker. Now, when she tasted it, well, before she tasted it, she kind of checked him out. And he had red hair. She really liked the red hair. And his eyes looked like he'd been crying. So they had kind of some red stuff around them. So she kind of thought that was a pretty good deal. But when she tasted that lollipop, she said, no, Prince Dum Dum, go away. Well then, she had one who brought her something quite unique. It had a Santa Claus and Christmas tree and things about other holidays, and he thought this would be the big, big hit. And she bit off Santa Claus's head. But it didn't do a thing for her. Then the most handsome one there came in, and he didn't only have one lollipop. He had a variety. And she liked the idea. She especially liked the twisty purple one, even though it wasn't red. And that's the one she decided to taste. And she went, and a smile crept on her face. This is good, Mama. This is good, Daddy. And the prince said, I knew it. Now you can fall in love with me, and I will take you to the moon, where the moonbeams lollipops come from. And the mama and the daddy said, no, no, you can't take our daughter away. And she said, Mama, but I'm happy. He's a beautiful, nice prince. He made me the best sucker in the world. And I'm going to go with him to the moon. So there they went, up on a moonbeam to Moonland. And she said, goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Daddy. Goodbye, kingdom. Goodbye, royal doctor and scribes. I'm going to the moon with my moonbeam prince so that I can eat my moonbeam lollipops. Okay, now this is the last one I'm going to tell you. These are the four main ones that we used to listen to. Then we also sang Kumbaya a lot and a couple of other songs. So this one you'll know right off, I'm sure, and I think it was probably your favorite. Once upon a time, there was a little town named Waveland. And in the little town, right up at the edge by the main street, there was a pumpkin patch. And it got around that the pumpkins in the pumpkin patch could talk. Yeah, seriously, they could talk. Well, the problem was, though, they only talked to very special people. The principal of the school walked by one day, and he didn't want too many people seeing him, but he kind of whispered and said, hey, little pumpkins in the pumpkin patch, how are you today? They ignored him. The librarian went to the library, and she said, hey, little pumpkins in the pumpkin patch, I'm pretty cool. You guys are too. Can you talk to me? No, heavens no, they ignored her. There was the man who owned the hardware store, Mr. Servies, and he stopped and he talked to him because he really liked pumpkin pie especially, and he thought maybe he could talk him into jumping into his truck and he could take him home and make pumpkin pie. But they didn't talk to him either. And every day, 2 or 3 or 4 people would go by and try. And even one of the teachers took her whole class there, and they tried to talk to the pumpkins, but nope, it didn't work. Well, one fall, Karen Zock, one of the women in the town, had her 7 grandchildren down for fall break. And they decided that they would go up and, well, actually they went to town to get the mail, but no, they had a plan that they would also talk to the pumpkins. So the oldest one said, I'll go first. And Austin said, hello, pumpkins in the pumpkin patch. Didn't say anything. Then Stephen said, hello, I'm Stephen. How are you, pumpkins in the pumpkin patch? Nope, didn't talk. Well, AJ was a little shy, and he just said, hi. Didn't talk. Then Dane was next, and he's pretty happy most of the time, and he says, hey, pumpkins, how are you doing? Well, they didn't talk to Dane either. Then Austin, oh, I think I forgot Quentin. Yes, Quentin. He's quite the charmer, and he said that too. He said, "Hi guys, I think I could charm you into talking to me, maybe?" They thought he was pretty cute stuff, but no, didn't. Then Will decided that he would talk next, and he just kind of bashfully said, "Hi guys, girls, how you doing?" Well, they didn't talk to him either. And then the only girl of the seven, Riley, said, "Hi pumpkins, how you doing? Yow!" Well, didn't talk to her either. So they gave up and they started to their little Gramps' house and Big Gramps' house. And who was behind the camera, by the way. And they started toward home and they heard something. "Hey, hello, how are ya? Oh, you guys are nice. We like you guys." And the pumpkins were talking to him. They went back and they were so excited and they carefully jumped through the pumpkin patch without hurting any of them. And the pumpkins just laughing and the boys and girls were laughing and people began to gather around and they were so amazed that the pumpkins really did talk. And they were talking because those 7 children were very, very special.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Gramps talked me into going ahead and singing Kumbaya as well as the stories. And you just have to remember that my voice is old and creaky and cracky now instead of the beautiful voice I had when I used to sing it to you. But here goes. Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, oh Lord, Kumbaya. Stephen, sleepy Lord, Kumbaya. Stephen, sleepy Lord, Kumbaya. Stephen, sleepy Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Austin, snoring Lord, Kumbaya. Austin, snoring Lord, Kumbaya. Austin, snoring Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. AJ's praying Lord, Kumbaya. AJ's playing Lord, Kumbaya. AJ's playing Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Quentin has his foot stuck out, Kumbaya. Quentin has his foot stuck out, Kumbaya. Quentin has his foot stuck out, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Daner's dreaming about a home run, Lord, Kumbaya. Daner's dreaming about a home run, Lord, Kumbaya. Daner's dreaming about a home run, Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Will is working on a panda puzzle, Kumbaya. Will is working on a panda puzzle, Kumbaya. Will is working on a panda puzzle, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Riley's dreaming about animals, Lord. Kumbaya. Riley's dreaming about animals, Lord. Kumbaya. Riley's dreaming about animals, Lord. Kumbaya. Oh, Lord. Kumbaya. Grams loves all 7 of her children, Lord, grandchildren, Lord. Kumbaya. Grams loves all 7 of her grandchildren, Lord. Kumbaya. Grams loves all 7 of her grandchildren, Lord. Kumbaya. Oh, Lord. Kumbaya.